The Indiana Fever just pulled off the impossible and nobody saw it coming. What happened inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse last night wasn't just a playoff win, it was a complete dismantling of everything the Las Vegas Aces thought they knew about dominance. And here's the shocking part that has everyone talking. They did it without their biggest star, Caitlin Clark, who's been sidelined with an ankle injury since early January 2025. The Fever's bench players stepped up in ways that left A'ja Wilson speechless, and Becky Hammond burning timeouts she didn't even have. But that's not even the wildest part of this story. If you're loving this Fever comeback story, smash that like button right now and let me know in the comments if you think they can actually pull off the championship without Clark. What makes this victory even more insane is the context everyone seems to be ignoring. The Fever have been playing with a rotating roster all season due to injuries. They've had 18 different players suit up since the season started, and their latest hardship contract signings from December are now starting in crucial playoff games. Think about that for a second. Players who weren't even on the roster 2 months ago are now outplaying two-time champions. Aaliyah Boston absolutely locked down A'ja Wilson in the paint, holding the so-called MVP to just 31 points on terrible efficiency. Kelsey Mitchell went nuclear from three-point range, and Lexi Hall, yes, Lexi Hall, became the unexpected hero with her defensive intensity that had Wilson throwing her arms up in frustration every possession. But here's where things get really controversial, and why the WNBA might have a serious problem on their hands. The officiating in this game suddenly flipped in Indiana's favor for the first time all series, and the Aces completely melted down. After 3 straight games of getting every single whistle, Vegas couldn't handle it when the calls finally went against them. Boston drew 13 free throw attempts, something that sent Wilson into a post-game tantrum where she sarcastically claimed Boston had a quote special whistle unquote. The hypocrisy is stunning when you consider Wilson averaged 15 free throws per game in the first 3 games of this series. What happened next in the press conference room would shock everyone and expose the Aces' true character under pressure. Becky Hammond sat down at the podium and instead of analyzing the game or giving credit to Indiana's incredible performance, she simply said they shot 34 free throws and we shot 11. Next question. That was it. No acknowledgement of their 23 turnovers, no mention of their terrible shot selection, just pure salt about the officiating. Meanwhile, Christy Sides and the Fever players showed nothing but class, talking about execution, teamwork, and the next game. The contrast couldn't be more obvious. But that wasn't the whole story of how this game unraveled for Vegas. The turning point came in the third quarter when Hammond burned a timeout she didn't have, resulting in a technical foul that swung momentum completely to Indiana. You could see the panic on the Aces bench as they realized they were actually in trouble. Chelsea Gray looked lost, Jackie Young couldn't buy a bucket, and Kelsey Plum was forcing shots that had no chance. The Fever smelled blood in the water and attacked relentlessly. Every loose ball, every 50-50 play, every contested rebound went Indiana's way because they simply wanted it more. The most revealing moment came when Lexi Hall got into it with A'ja Wilson near the baseline. Wilson tried her usual intimidation tactics, the shoulder bumps, the trash talk, the physical play that usually gets opponents rattled. But Hall stood her ground, didn't back down an inch, and actually got Wilson to lose her composure. The refs let them play through it, and you could see Wilson's frustration building. She's used to getting those calls, used to opponents backing down, used to the refs protecting her. When none of that happened, she completely lost her focus and started forcing bad shots. What makes this even more impressive is looking at who Indiana was missing for this game. Not just Caitlin Clark, but also dealing with nagging injuries to multiple rotation players. Sophie Cunningham has been playing through a shoulder issue that's clearly affecting her shot. Damiris Dantas is still working her way back from knee problems. The Fever are literally held together with duct tape and determination right now, yet they're pushing the defending champions to the absolute brink. This is the kind of story that Hollywood would reject for being too unrealistic, yet here we are watching it unfold in real time. The statistics tell an even crazier story that the mainstream media doesn't want you to hear. Indiana shot 52% from the field compared to Vegas shooting just 38%. The Fever had more assists, fewer turnovers, and dominated the paint despite giving up size at nearly every position. They out-rebounded the Aces 41-33, with Aaliyah Boston grabbing 14 boards while battling foul trouble. These aren't fluky numbers. This is complete domination in every phase of the game. The Fever played like the championship team, while the Aces played like they expected to win just by showing up. Here's what nobody's talking about, though, and it's the elephant in the room that could change everything. The pressure is entirely on Vegas now. They have to go home for Game 5 knowing that Indiana has all the momentum, all the confidence, and nothing to lose. The Aces haven't faced real adversity all season. They've cruised through most games, gotten favorable whistles, and had the media crowning them before the playoffs even started. Now they're one loss away from a historic collapse that would rank among the biggest upsets in WNBA playoff history. Can you imagine the headlines if the 6th-seeded Fever, missing their best player, knock out the defending champions? The psychological warfare happening between these teams is fascinating to watch unfold. Indiana keeps showing up in those Stranger Things jerseys that seem to give them supernatural powers. They're 3-0 when wearing them in elimination games this season. Vegas tried to counter by wearing their all-black intimidation uniforms, but it backfired spectacularly. The Fever players were laughing and joking during warm-ups, while the Aces looked tight and nervous. Body language experts would have a field day analyzing the pregame footage. You can literally see which team believed they would win before the ball was even tipped. But let's talk about what this means for the league's narrative going forward, because this is where things get really spicy. The WNBA has been pushing the Aces as their flagship franchise, the model of excellence, the team everyone should aspire to be. They've gotten the primetime games, the national coverage, the favorable scheduling, and now they're getting exposed by a team that's been dealing with adversity all season long. The Fever have had to play through injuries, questionable officiating, roster changes, and zero respect from the media. Yet, here they are, one win away from the finals. The coaching matchup is another aspect that's been completely overlooked. Christy Sides has been masterful with her adjustments, using different defensive schemes to confuse Wilson, running creative sets to get Mitchell open looks, and managing her thin rotation perfectly. Meanwhile, Becky Hammond seems stuck in one gear, running the same plays over and over expecting different results. When your only adjustment is complaining about the refs, you know you're getting outcoached. Sides has Hammond's number right now, and it's showing on the court. What happened in the fourth quarter was pure basketball poetry. The Fever went on a 15-2 run that essentially ended the game, and it wasn't through spectacular plays or lucky shots. It was fundamental basketball executed to perfection. Ball movement, defensive rotations, boxing out, all the little things that win playoff games. The Aces looked like they'd never seen a zone defense before, passing around the perimeter aimlessly until the shot clock forced them into a bad attempt. You could see the life draining from their bench with each made basket by Indiana. The social media reaction has been absolutely explosive, with fans calling out the double standard in how these teams are covered. When the Aces get calls, it's just good aggressive play. When the Fever finally get calls, suddenly it's a conspiracy. When Vegas wins, they're champions showing their class. When Indiana wins, it must be luck or the refs. The bias is so obvious that even casual fans are starting to notice and call it out. The Fever's Twitter account gained over 50,000 followers in the 24 hours after this game, showing how much support is building for this underdog story. Here's the thing that should terrify Vegas going into Game 5. Indiana has figured out their formula. Attack the paint relentlessly, make Wilson work on defense, force their role players to beat you, and don't back down from their physical play. The Aces have no answer for this approach because they've never had to develop one. They're used to teams being intimidated, used to getting bailed out by whistles, used to their talent overwhelming opponents. When none of that works, they look lost and confused. The injury report for Game 5 is going to be crucial, and here's where Indiana might catch a huge break. Rumors are swirling that Chelsea Gray is dealing with a knee issue that's worse than the team is letting on. She was noticeably limping during timeouts, and her lateral movement on defense was basically non-existent. If she can't go full speed, Vegas loses their best playmaker and their defensive anchor in the backcourt. Meanwhile, Indiana is getting healthier by the day, with players stepping up and finding their rhythm at the perfect time. But the real story here isn't just about one game or even one series. This is about the evolution of the WNBA and which direction the league wants to go. Do they want predetermined dynasties, where the same teams win every year with help from favorable treatment? Or do they want genuine competition where any team can rise up through hard work and determination? The Fever are forcing this conversation, whether the league likes it or not. The pressure on A'ja Wilson specifically is immense right now. She's supposed to be the face of the league, the unstoppable force, the player who delivers in big moments. Instead, she's getting locked up by Aaliyah Boston, complaining about calls, and showing poor leadership when her team needs her most. Her legacy is on the line in Game 5. Either she steps up and proves she's the superstar everyone claims, or she becomes part of one of the biggest collapses in playoff history. There's no middle ground here. What makes this even more fascinating is the venue change for Game 5. Going back to Vegas should theoretically help the Aces, but it might actually add more pressure. Their home crowd will be expecting a dominant performance, expecting to celebrate a series victory. If Indiana comes out hot and silences that crowd early, the pressure could become suffocating. The Fever have already proven they can win on the road. They've got nothing to fear about playing in Vegas. The X factor nobody's discussing is the potential return of Caitlin Clark for Game 5. While officially listed as doubtful with her ankle injury, sources close to the team suggest she's been pushing hard to return if the Fever could force a deciding game. Imagine the psychological impact if Clark walks out for warm-ups, even if she doesn't play significant minutes. The Aces would have to completely change their game plan, and the mental edge would swing even further toward Indiana. If you think the Fever can complete this miracle run, hit that subscribe button right now and drop a fire emoji in the comments. This is the kind of story that only comes around once in a generation. The aftermath of Game 4 is still reverberating through the basketball world. Analysts who picked Vegas to sweep are scrambling to explain what went wrong. The narrative has completely flipped, and suddenly everyone wants to jump on the Fever bandwagon. But Indiana doesn't care about the bandwagon fans or the sudden respect. They're focused on one thing: finishing the job and proving that heart, determination, and team basketball can still overcome star power and favoritism. Game 5 is set to tip off this Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern, and it might be the most watched WNBA playoff game in history. The storylines are incredible, the drama is off the charts, and the implications are massive. Will the Fever complete one of the greatest upsets in playoff history? Or will the Aces finally wake up and show why they're defending champions? Either way, this series has already changed the conversation around the WNBA forever. The league wanted drama and storylines to attract new fans. Well, they got exactly what they asked for, just not the way they expected.